everybody. My name is Erica Flores Baltodano. For those of you that don't know me, I am the campus dean at San Luis Obispo College of Law. I'm really delighted to see students from all of our campuses here tonight. And I'm excited to kick off our first Exploring Careers in the Law program of the new school year. So the campus deans try to offer these programs once in fall and once in spring. And we bring together sometimes a panel of speakers, sometimes an individual speaker, to really expose you to different areas of law. When you're in law school, one of your jobs is to start exploring, start thinking about what is interesting to you, start pursuing internships and looking for mentors and exploring different areas of law. And so this is one way that we help facilitate that for you. So if you hear something that you like, then you can pursue it further and perhaps reach out for some mentorship. So tonight, our program is going to take the form of a fireside chat with me having a conversation with our speaker, Julie van der Zanden. So Julie, who said I can call her Julie, is a patent lawyer who has practiced in the areas of patents, trademarks, and trade secrets for the past 30 years. She attended law school in the evening, just like all of you, while she was working as an engineer. So tonight we're going to hear about her journey from law school to her current work as the acting Chief Intellectual Property Counsel for a company called Element Solution Incorporated. Julie's going to also provide us with an overview of the broad field of intellectual property, because intellectual property comprises a lot of different areas of law, different specializations. She'll do a little bit deeper dive, I think, into her personal area, which is patent law, but you're going to learn a lot about IP, as we call it in the legal world, IP generally. So I think this is going to be a really great overview. And if you've never heard of IP or always wondered what does that actually mean, you're in the right place. So with that, welcome, Julie. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I want to just begin, if you can just start by telling us about the legal work that you do today. What does your job entail right now?
Sure, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Basically, so the legal work that I'm doing right now is with patents, trademarks, and IP agreements for the most part. So those and the contracts. And so those are the top three areas that I am probably going to focus more on this evening. I do want to put the caveat in that I am I'm working for a company, and so these opinions are my opinions. They're not my company's. Also, I think in terms of framing the conversation and the way that you're thinking about it, when I went to law school, I sort of had this idea about it having to do with justice and a lot of stuff like that. But really, when you're talking about intellectual property, you're talking about business law. And you're talking about an area where your clients and customers and the people that you're going to be working for are business people. And so that frame of mind is one that's really required. This is not about philanthropy, it's about business and making a profit and the interests of a company. And so that's the good news. For me, I wasn't able to really go into the areas like I couldn't do family law. I mean, that was really something too stressful. I mean, I couldn't do divorce law. I mean, there are all these different aspects of the law that are tremendously important that I simply wasn't cut out for. And so I do want to kind of get that out of the way so that if you don't like being in a company or you don't like working with clients who are corporate, this is probably not the place to be. And so I'm also working as a remote attorney. And so I have to say that it's been wonderful and I never want to go back into another office again in my life. But it is an online job. And when you work for a company as in a remote position, you're going to be online 8 hours a day at least. And so if you prefer a more active lifestyle, this is not it. So most of the communication that I'm doing with my internal clients are all by email, or they're all by Teams call or Zoom call or phone call. And so that's a big distinction.
So Julie, where are you based right now?
I'm living in the state of Oregon and my employer is everywhere else in the world. So
Yeah.
I end up having internal client conversations with different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's what else I wanted to pass along about that. Oh, another thing that this particular, so bear in mind is if you're looking for the litigation type high thrills and that kind of a lifestyle, this is not it at all. So I would say that you know that that expectation of being able to argue persuasively in front of a judge or a jury is there's it's very, I mean, there are parts you can go into in enforcement, but for the most part, the jobs are not primarily focused in those areas.
Well, I think
So,
that's helpful because we always have students who are not interested in being litigators.
mhm,
Maybe they consider themselves more suited for remote work or more introverted
yeah,
or,
yeah,
really enjoy business or come from a business background. So I think there's a
yes,
lot to talk about here. So I understand that you graduated from an evening law school program and you put yourself through law school while you were working for a
yes.
company that I think people would have probably heard of. Where were you? What were
The
you?
Boeing company,
You
yeah,
were working for Boeing, right? And you were an
yes.
engineer. So tell
Mhm.
us about what that journey was like, and how did you get from law school to what you're doing now? What was your pathway?
Um, if I had to summarize it in 2 words, it would be failing forward, and I say that with, I'm eternally grateful for the Boeing company. It was a lovely, lovely place to work. It was at a time though where I was a fish out of water and it was not going to work long term, and that became really clear. And so it was either d- accept it or don't. And so I decided I'm not accepting this. And so I decided let's do something else. And I joked at the time it was either law school or psychoanalysis because they both cost about the same thing. And so I chose law school. And that's when I decided I wouldn't didn't want to go into so much debt, and so I chose to work at the same time,
Mhm.
and my heart bleeds for every single one of you. I know how hard that is.
Yeah.
It took me an entire year to get my health back after I graduated from law school. It
Mhm.
took me like 4.5 years to get through. So yes, it was really hard. And I always joke that, the only reason I could do it was I wasn't married, I didn't own a home, I didn't have any pets, and I didn't bathe regularly. And so it's like perfect.
I
So
think some of our students can relate to that. It's quite
yeah,
overwhelming at times, and I stand in awe of all of our students who are working
me
full
too.
time, tending to families, other caretaking responsibilities, and going to school in the evening. So, the
Yeah.
fact that we have so many students here today, I'm really proud of all of you because this is what it's all about. So, um,
Mhm.
so you were working while you were pursuing law school, and then what was your first job? How did you go from an engineering job to a legal job?
So that's an interesting story. So what I did after I graduated, I took a survey, I took a map out, and it was back when you did a paper map. And I located every single patent law firm on the entire Puget Sound corridor in the state of Washington. So I literally put dots at every single one, and I systematically called each and every one to see, and I was really interviewing them.
Yeah.
And I didn't say that, of course, but I wanted to find out who they were and what it just felt like to talk with them. And would they even talk to me? Some people didn't talk to me, and I was like, okay, I'm not going there. And so I finally narrowed it down to one firm that I really knew that I thought I would fit in with and I wanted to work at. And so I tried to get an interview and they said, no, we're not hiring. We don't want you. Like, okay, can I call you back? This went on for an entire year where I called them almost every 2 weeks to say, oh, can I think this week? Tell me you're hiring. And, at some point, I think they actually hired me because they just were tired of talking to me on the phone every 2 weeks. And they were desperate. I did catch them at a desperate moment where they were like, yes, hire her. So I
Okay.
shut her up and get somebody in here. So it did take an entire year. And it was because I wasn't open at that time to exploring other places. I knew I wanted to go there and I was willing to wait it out. So
Well,
that
that
was kind
I
of a different experience.
Well, I appreciate your tenacity there and your determination, but let me back up a second. So you obviously knew that you were looking for a patent law firm. So what at that point, how did you know that? I mean, how did you know what area law you wanted to go into? How were you able to narrow your search to patent law firms?
You nailed the failing forward questions here. I'm laughing because I had tried working as an intern at a general law firm, and I did that between my last 2 years in law school, and I absolutely hated it.
Okay.
And I was just kicking myself. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is like the second useless degree. And I
Mhm.
was terrified that I had just wasted 9 years of my life and untold amounts of money. And I didn't like it. And it
Mhm.
was like, okay, I'm going to do this and it's going to work. And
Mhm.
fortunately, it did work, but I didn't know at the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, so obviously your technical background as an engineer probably led you towards patent law, and it appealed to you, I imagine.
Well,
Uh,
I didn't know that that would be even a choice when I set out in law school, and it was only after I, realized that I don't want to work for a general
General,
practice
yeah.
firm. It was like, well, what do I do? I
Yeah.
didn't
So
know.
I'll
So,
often tell students that trying to decide what area of law to practice is a little bit like dating. You have to kind of date around a little bit, and it's just as valuable to know what you don't want as it is to know what you do want. So that's why we encourage students to do internships, to seek out mentorships from people in different areas of law. If you think you're really, really interested, I remember doing this actually in law school. I thought I was really interested in family law. And so I got a part-time job working with a family law attorney, which was good. But I had plans. This was in the Bay Area. I had plans to go back to LA. So she suggested I reach out to some firms in LA, and it was a totally different ball game. And I was so turned off just by the phone conversations that I
oh,
pivoted completely. So it's just that's an important stage to go through, and it's good
yeah,
to explore. So okay, so
yeah.
you land at a firm where you're doing IP
Mhm.
work. So
Yes.
let's talk about what that is. Can you give us, and this might be the time for your slides, I'm not sure.
Okay, let
Give
me
us
go
an
there then.
overview of IP and what does that entail? And uh,
Okay, let me see if I can do this.
yeah,
I know
it's
it's
okay. Take your
embarrassing.
time. We're gonna do a screen share right now, and um,
I don't know if that's coming through right now or not, but I hope it is.
that
Oops,
is
that's the
coming
wrong one.
through. It's not.
Okay,
Oh, it's much smaller now. There we go.
slideshow from the beginning. So I
Yeah,
have, I think,
perfect.
7 slides, and
Okay.
so I'll go through each one of the areas just briefly on them. And what I want you to notice are the yellow things, and that's because in each of those yellow areas, people spend their entire careers in those areas. And so, I mean, when you're in the area of intellectual property law, there is so much there that you can do that it's like this infinite source of stuff.
Mhm,
And a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to focus on this area or the other area, and that's going to be my career. And that's fine. But you
mhm.
have choices. And so at
Yeah,
any time where you get tired of something, you can move on to something else.
yeah.
So I don't know what this audience, where everyone's at in terms of what IP is and what patents are. It's
Start from the
basically the right,
beginning.
okay, it's the
Yeah.
right to exclude someone from using an invention. And so it's set up a little different. It's not the right for you to actually make the invention. But the thing to keep in mind with patents that's really, really important to help you understand what it is philosophically is it's a contract with the government essentially. And they're going to give you a limited time monopoly in exchange for you telling the world what your invention is. When there was in prior times where there weren't strong patent rights, what people would do is that they would really they would keep information as trade secrets.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, it's really hard to build technology off of trade secrets because nobody knows what it is. And so the idea is we're all better off when technology is known. And the only way that's going to happen is if you incentivize people to spill and say what it is that they're actually doing. So this goes, essentially this idea of a monopoly goes against the antitrust and anti-competition type laws. So the government's making an exception there. They're saying, okay, fine, fine. You get your little monopoly. Now tell us what it is. And
Mhm,
so one of the things that people spend a lot of time, patent attorneys do, is that they spend it actually getting that contract, getting that patent with the government. And that's called patent preparation and prosecution. And they're focusing most of their time trying to argue that an invention is new, useful, and unobvious. And so that's where you get the technical piece of it in, where you are not ever supposed to be an expert in the technology areas. Please never believe that. Your inventor will educate you. What you must be able to do is actually follow along logically and ask questions. And that literally is it. And
mm,
as long as you're doing that, you will be working with the inventor to make these arguments as to why it's new, useful, and unobvious. And so you stay solidly in the legal world. You do not cross into the technology world in the sense that, you're not going to become an inventor yourself. It does happen with some folks. It's happened to me, but I mean, ethically, I just, like immediately sign over my rights to the client. It's like there's just no question about it. Um, the next the reason for patents is that the government wants to encourage that technology growth and discourage the use of trade secrets. And you'll see this big distinction in the law because trade secrets are bloody fragile. And the way that the law is structured, it makes them difficult to get, difficult to keep, difficult to enforce. And once they're out, it's like they're dead. And so everything about trade secrets is in the negative. And yet people still gravitate toward them because those last forever potentially. The next area that is important in the patent world is licensing those rights. And here we're back to this is a business. This is people trying to monetize and get the money out of the inventions that they've done. And so you're going to find you can spend your entire life. This is actually the area that I love the most is licensing and IP contract work. The third, oops, I didn't want to do that. The third area is stopping infringers. And what I'm going to, you've got 4 yellows here, right? If you want to stop infringers, you're going to be a patent litigator, and that absolutely does not require a technology bachelor's degree of any sort. You can come from anything you want. You just need to be licensed to practice it, and you need to enjoy litigation. And these folks are amazing. I can tell you on the heap of pay scale, these people rake it in, but
Mhm.
there's a price. It's a very steep price. And so you just need to be sure that that's the price that you want to pay and you will pay it and you'll get the reward for it.
Mhm.
The fourth area is called search and opinion work. And that's where businesses are actually trying to do some stealth competitive analysis on what patents their competitors have and how they might get around them and how they can maybe um, use that to or to their advantage in some way. What I have here at the bottom is the front face of a patent, and this is a goofy one. It's a how not to eat patent face mask, anti-eating face mask. Again, it must be new, useful, and unobvious. What you do when you make or when you're working to create these patents and get the grant with the U.S. government is you're drafting this entire thing and you're working with the inventor. So you'll be having conversations about, what are the boundaries of what you've created? Well, can you do it a little differently, or how would somebody design around it? Or have you thought about this part? Does that play a piece in it? Or can you talk about this aspect? It doesn't technically make sense to me. So explain it to me like I'm an examiner, and they're going to be, deciding your fate. At the end of each patent, you'll see something that are numbered claims, and this is really the legal protection that's provided by a patent. It puts into words what you are claiming you invented. And so this is like the heart of the patent and what you get paid to do well. And that's what the basis for, you're stopping infringers. They have to be doing what you have in your meets and bounds of your rights here. Does this make sense to people?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's a helpful overview. I just learned a whole lot about patents
Okay,
and what that
good.
all entails, all the different areas. I will say that at the beginning you talked about, you may this IP work, you may not be in court trying to persuade a judge or a jury, but certainly if you're trying to encourage or persuade the government to issue your patent,
Yes,
you're
absolutely.
using your persuasive
Absolutely.
skills in that way, and that's
Absolutely.
persuasive
Mhm.
argument, persuasive writing for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, no,
So
this is good. Let's go
okay.
on.
Trademarks then. So I'm just gonna check the time as well. So 5:51. So trademark work is a trademark is basically the right to your exclusive use of a mark and potentially forever. So it's for as long as you're using it in commerce. And so it's not, you can exclude others from using it, but you also have the right yourself to use that trademark. Things that qualify are trademarks, you see them all around you. Words, slogans, logos, sounds, even smells in some cases, colors can all be used to identify the source of goods. So if you look at trademarks again, back to the philosophical level, because this really helps to understand trademarks, it is an intellectual property right, but it's better thought of as a consumer protection right.
Mhm.
Because when you're getting a trademark, the trademark office does not care about you at all. What they care about is ensuring that consumers are protected from confusingly similar marks in the marketplace. And so if you view it that way, you will not be disappointed. If you view it as if the government wants to help you, no, they don't. And so that's an important distinction to make because that's where you will be arguing all of the time. So when you're trying to get these three areas, the first one is you're trying to get it on the register, and you'll get an office action back after you file it. The examiner is going to say, no, it's confusingly similar to these 7 marks over here. And then you're going to be using persuasive skills to overcome those rejections. But that's also the prosecution of these applications in order to get the right. And people spend their entire careers there, and you can get really good at it.
Wow.
The second is just like the patents, where licensing and contracts to monetize that, and that's where you get the branding and co-branding and the marketing adventures you see when you go into stores. You'll see two different products maybe that have joined into a co-branding thing or license their rights in some ways. They're monetizing it. They're getting an additional source of revenue by letting somebody use the goodwill that's attached to those trademarks. And then there's the litigators that stop the counterfeiters. And again, you're going to be using arguing skills all the time. You're going to be out of the office much, much more because you will be in court or you will be, um, more engaged in what's happening in real life. You could be doing surveys for evidence collection at a mall. I don't know if you've ever seen those where there's a little stand and people are asking, you'll pay you some money to say, hey, do you think these are similar? Yeah, and they'll do a survey. Um, so below here, I think I've you see this is TikTok's registration in the US for their trademark rights or one of their trademark rights that they have registered. That's just what it looks like. It's a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Um, Everything's digital now, so it's not like, you hold on to these or anything.
Mhm. What's the next one,
So,
Julie?
okay, we're going to go to trade secrets. I love them and hate them all at the same time. I love them because they're so powerful, and I hate them because they're so fragile.
Mm.
Um, the information that qualifies as a trade secret must have commercial value. It must not be public, and there are steps that you're taking to actively keep it confidential. So those are the things that, in order to say legally that you have a trade secret right, you must have these. There is no register that you can go to where you can say to the government, "Oh, I want to register my trade secret." No, they make you prove it in court before when you to bring the case. And so if you're suing someone for trade secret theft, you're going to have to establish first and foremost that you have a trade secret to begin with. And that's where the defense is really going to come in and say, well, no, you didn't take steps to keep it actively confidential. Here, Joe Blow and all of Instagram knows about it. So it's not a trade secret. So there's a lot to keeping it trade secret, the steps that you can take, and that will keep you busy. And these are usually in-house jobs because it's very rare that a law firm will really focus on trade secrets because it's companies just don't even want their lawyers to know about it, outside lawyers.
Mm.
So the next one you see is owners can license their rights. Here we are back to commercializing and making a buck off of it. And then the owner can stop theft. This is a really, really interesting one. And there are some people in the world that do this and do it really well. There are not a lot of people who practice in trade secret because it's a difficult area to do. The people that stop theft, though, I've read some of the cases, and you can go to like the FBI website and you can see some of the espionage cases in particular. They're just fascinating, absolutely fascinating about the things that human beings will do to steal trade secrets within companies. It's like, wow, people are awful sometimes. I mean, like really awful. So that's trade secrets.
Okay.
Copyright, right to control the works of art. And people get copyright mixed up a lot because they think it has to do more with software. And it does have something to do with software, but essentially it's there for art. So things like sculpture and films and video and music books. So keeping that squarely in mind, because the part that people get tripped up on is that copyrights will protect the expression of the artistic idea, but it's not actually protecting the idea. And so somebody will say, well, I had the idea to draw, a caveman eating an ice cream cone, and here Joe Blow went and made that same drawing. It's like, well, no, anybody can do that. That idea is freely available to others to do and use. But the expression that you in particular have made is yours and you have a copyright. And that copyright actually just it just like is created out of thin air as soon as you put it into a tangible medium. You
Yeah.
don't have to go get a registration for it, although that's available at the US copyright office. And obviously, we'd encourage people to do that. But once you put it in that fixed medium, you own a copyright, a legal right you can sue on. So the second place is just like the other two are the other ones, licensing their rights. And here you're going to get into the big, beautiful, fascinating world of the copyrights that are often associated with film and music and just those entire industries. And
Mhm.
you can break those down into their individual industries and spend your entire career there easily,
Yeah.
easily. And then we have the litigators that stop the copycats, and it's the same thing. That's the work you're going to be doing. You're going to be litigating, and you're going to be. It's a fast-paced life. So there's a certificate, excuse me, of one in the U.S. And my favorite is IP contracts. So this is basically a culmination of things where the idea is to you're monetizing it in some way, usually, unless you're doing a settlement agreement. But you're trying to get something for something. And so you're going to be representing one of those sides. And so I like this area a lot because it combines some of the other IP areas where there's usually trade secrets and patents involved at the same time. But it allows me some creativity into drafting the agreement and then negotiating the agreement. And so that's the part I like because I like puzzles and I like games. And I look at negotiation just like a puzzle. And it's like, where can we find that overlap of where we're both going to be happy? And it's like looking for that and having that conversation and going back and forth and saying, well, if I give a little of this and take away that, and then what works, I enjoy that a
Yeah.
lot. And this an IP contract has that in spades.
So
Um,
this is a good area for a student who is really loving their a 1L contracts class right now,
yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, this is someone who is really interested in contracts, and it's sort of like a specialization of contracts is to focus on IP work.
Yes. And
Okay.
there's we'll get to this a little bit later, but because it does pull in so many different areas of IP, there are a ton of jobs. And people that do this work will never be out of work
Mm,
for two reasons. One, there's just a lot of work to do, but then for two, the litigators will never be out of work because a lot of people don't do it very well. And
mm,
then, then you have problems and people start arguing.
yeah.
My whole perspective when I create a contract and get it signed, I want to make sure it's never litigated. And
Mhm.
so I work really, really hard to try and address and make it as crystal clear so that there's no confusion and everybody knows where they stand and the parties can make informed decisions.
Yeah.
And you stay out of court.
Good. Good.
So that takes us then
That
to, oops,
yeah.
a question, and we're at the top of the hour. What would you like to do
Yeah,
now?
no, that's great. I think we're gonna get into a little bit of maybe if you could discuss what personality types are good for these different areas, what particular educational backgrounds, anything that
Okay.
you'd like to share with our students that might help them maybe place themselves in one of these areas of IP work.
Okay. I'm going to start with the education requirements and what's really required to do the job. So all of these work, or all of this work, if you're holding yourself out to be doing it as an attorney, then you will need to pass a state bar. And so that's the ground, that's the price of entry. So other than that, the only other it's only patents that has an additional layer on it. And there are three ways that you can go about practicing and calling yourself a patent attorney. And that the first way is what most people do. They take what's called the US Patent and Trademark Office patent bar exam, and it's just like a bar exam. It's just what you think it is, and it's just as painful. And in order to sit for that exam, you have to have a Bachelor of Science in an engineering or hard science degree. So if you've got that, then you can sit for that exam, and when you pass it, and most people do not pass it on the first time. When I took it, the pass rate was like 33%. I did not just take it once. So that's on video. I should have said that. Um, so anyways, so that is one way to get there to call yourself a patent attorney and to do patent work, any of those areas that are on that list. The second way is that the patent office in recent years has opened up to say, oh, well, okay, we've got people out there who are eminently qualified, but they don't have that BS degree. So they have allowed people who have significant technical background and experiences to petition to be allowed to also be admitted into practice as a patent attorney. The
And they
third,
still have to take the bar, that
they
patent
do
bar?
not have to take the bar, but they
Oh,
are subject to the scrutiny of the patent office to decide if those experiences really qualify them to do the work.
right.
So the last thing they want is a troop of, they've got a zillion patent examiners and they want people who are interacting with them to be qualified. The third way and final way is if you don't have the experiences, you don't have the undergraduate degree and the BS that works, then you can actually take you can petition and take what's called a fundamentals of engineering test. And I don't know a lot about it because this came quite a bit after I started practicing. But my impression is that it's another way for the patent office to just ensure that
Mhm.
you have a technical bent and that these things are going to work out well for you as well as their, examining troops and that things will flow smoothly.
Right.
So it would be I would assume that it's going to be a test of some sort. I just don't know how rigorous it's going to be.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So for all of this, though, if you're going to practice in front of the patent office, they have their own manual of examining procedures, and same for trademark. There's an entire trademark office manual of examining procedures. Super helpful. Almost all your questions can get answered there, and that's where you go to more than the law, more times often than not. So it's just a different set of rules and regulations that you're working with, and
Mhm.
all very doable. It takes time for sure, but
Mhm.
there's nothing that's in it that I would call hard in the sense of, like rule against perpetuities. It can be hard sometimes.
Our 1L students will become familiar with that in their second year of property law. That's a tough concept conceptually. So, okay, so this means that a lot of areas of IP are fair game for our students, regardless of what their undergraduate degree is, and regardless of whether they even have an undergraduate degree, so long as they have had put
They're
in
licensed
have
to
yeah, they have
practice
some
law. Yeah,
they're licensed to practice law, and they
yeah,
have some experience, some work experience that might compensate. And
absolutely.
so, okay, so what else can you share with us?
Well, actually, your last point, I want to touch on it because it's a really important piece that people should understand in going to the space. When so there are really just not that many opportunities for law schools to teach it for one, and there are not that many programs that are specialized around the country that really focus on IP work. Sure, you will get the classes in some of them, but putting it all together in a way that actually allows you to go into a job and start practicing is like not going to happen. So you have to prepare yourself to this idea that you will be in an apprentice type situation, and that's good. And that if you decide to go into a law firm, which I would recommend just as a training ground. I mean, you get paid and they train you. How good is that? And then you should expect that it's going to take you some time to learn what it is that you're doing. And so that's why it was really important to me when I picked that first law firm. It's like, I need another education here. I need work. I need a paycheck. But I also want to be around people that I know I'm going to get good education from that experience. And I did. And I'll tell you a funny story about it. And I'm eternally grateful for this and this experience that I had. But when I first started there, I worked for one of the senior partners begrudgingly. He was not happy about having me. And it took 3 years for me to turn in a patent application prior to giving it to the client. I would always turn it into the senior partner. And he would always review it and mark it up and send it back to me. And it took 3 years for me to get back one patent application that did not have red marks on it. And it was like, oh my gosh, I've graduated. So
That
it's
is
like
that is excellent training, and that's not unlike
so good.
many law firm situations. When you
It
are
was
a brand
so
new
good.
attorney, you are going to see a lot of red markings on your writing. You're going to be critiqued if you're doing oral argument, and that's really important feedback. That's how you
Yes.
become a strong attorney.
It
So,
is absolutely. I'm eternally grateful for that
yeah.
person. I mean, it was painful at the time, but I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't take it personally. He didn't know me personally, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know. It was like, wow, so
Right.
good, really
Good.
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 So in terms of I think you asked about traits, and so I'm going to go to this
Yeah.
slide. Um, I've broken it out in here into different areas, and basically I've listed, some employers, and I've highlighted the ones where most people go. And
Mhm.
then under the helpful to personality traits, I've highlighted the ones that I've been had experience with.
Mhm.
So under patents, I do recommend law firms just because of that experience. If you go directly in-house, make sure that you are going to be with someone who's strong and that
Yeah.
can actually teach you.
Yeah.
That's going to be really important. Otherwise, you will waste time there and you can't get that time back.
Yeah, that's something for our students to understand. That if you're going to take a job that's in-house right out of law school, for a small startup company, think about who are going to be your mentors. How are you going to learn things you've never seen before? And so I think it's a good opportunity to think about. We can also talk about this, Julie, later after this slide, about professional associations, about mentorship, and about surrounding yourself by other people that you can learn from.
Actually, if you don't mind me going off on that
Yeah,
vector for just a moment,
let's do
because I
it
think
because I
it's
think
important enough.
students can read this slide on their own. So why don't you
Absolutely.
yeah, go on to that.
Yeah, I'll go on to that one. So I talked about getting into the law firm and doing that, right? And that how I didn't know anything, and so I made that list of firms. I talked to people. I kept pestering until I got the job. After I was there, I spent 9 years at that firm. The next job I went into was as general counsel of a sporting goods company. And the reason I got that job was because they were a client of the firm I was working at, and they had an attorney quit. And so they rang up their law firm and said, "Do you have anybody that we can have and hire now?"
Mhm.
And so a couple of us at the law firm said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting. So we'll go and interview for that." And I ended up getting that job. Um, the point I'm making is I would never have gotten that job had I been scrolling through job postings. I got the job because someone at my firm knew that I would be a potential fit for the job. And they said, "Yes, flag these two people that would be good fits for general counsel work." And so it was like that connection is what did it. Um, the exact same thing happened then. That company was acquired, but it was the connections I had within the company where the acquiring company was able to ask and say, "Well, is she someone we want to keep or not keep? Why would we keep her?" And because most people get laid off when you're acquired. I mean, it's just like they cut ranks left and right. And so somebody in the company I was at as general counsel said, "No, no, no, you need to keep her. This is good." So again, it was someone I knew who knew me and they knew the work
Yes.
that I was doing.
I'm really glad that
Okay.
you mentioned that because most of our law schools are situated in smaller communities where reputation and community engagement and who you know and meeting people and getting involved in the community really are very important to securing employment,
Hmm.
and also having someone vouch for you to say, oh yeah, I went to law school
Hmm.
with Julie and she was a really upstanding student, or she was really engaged or kind or worked hard. And so I think
Yeah,
it's important for students to understand that their reputation as a professional really starts in law school, especially
it does.
when your classmates could and then your professors could very easily become your colleagues, your
Hmm.
employers, and because we have
Hmm.
judges also teaching the judge that is going to be overseeing your cases in court and
Hmm.
making opinions about whether you are a good or not so good attorney. So
Absolutely.
I think you raise a
Yeah.
really good point.
Yeah. So the exact same thing happened and after that job, it was two other engagements that I had as working on a contract basis, but both of them knew me and it was like I got the jobs within 48 hours of them reaching out. It was like, huh, that's pretty
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to work at it so hard. So I did not know that when I spent the time in law school. I wish I had because
Yeah.
I would have made more connections in law school and I would have been more attuned to that particular aspect. So anyway,
Well,
you guys have the opportunity to do it now.
yeah, well that's actually one of my questions. I wanted to ask you, if you could go back in time and go talk to your law school self, what would you tell yourself? I mean, it sounds like part of the advice would be what you just said, right?
It is, and let me get out of this mode and go to that because I did write a few things down that I
Yeah,
wanted to pass along.
sure.
Um, yeah, the thing about I guess the first thing for me with law school is I didn't really know my learning style, and I'm hammering on this because I have since learned that I don't have a learning disability, but it borders on a, a learning style that I need to pay attention to, and I need to just lean into it. And so
Mhm.
I wish I had done that more because I could have been more effective in the time I spent studying. And so whatever you are and however you learn, love it.
Mm.
Along those same lines, knowing how to teach yourself virtually any topic, which I think going to law school forces you to do, because honestly, if you're not keeping up, you're going to learn it in the last 10 days of the semester. That's just the reality. Stay curious with all of these areas. Um, the one thing, the antidote to getting bored or to just like the mind numbingness of working hard and focused for 8 hours is to just continually be curious. And that's the one thing that's helped me and saved me, because then it's like something else I can think of to keep me
Mhm.
focused on what I'm doing and engaged in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Falling forward, there are difficult times ahead. And so again, you just expect it and know that, you're going to be growing and learning after law school and getting, your skills down.
Mhm.
And that I don't think that people necessarily think that, they're going to graduate from law school, then they're going to join this firm and make a bunch of money and everything's going to be just great. It's like, well, no, that's when the real pain starts. Okay. So just expect it. And
Right.
so, and just know that you're getting paid at the same time and you are creating an amazing career.
Yeah.
And so it's your time to actually to make all the mistakes and screw up and ask all the questions that somebody might think is stupid. I don't think they are, but that's the time to really take advantage of every single learning opportunity you can while you're in those positions and early on. Um, the IPR, the last one was that, oh, I talked about this apprenticeship thing also. I did want to talk about money because obviously being in IP and it being commercially related, I think money is important to talk about here. The part that worked for me is that I'm not good with the emotions in law. And so like you talked about family law and how that was really tough, it's like I just can't do it. And I didn't have the patience, I didn't have the emotional maturity to do that. Um, so going into business was good. And in terms of the pay, it was good too. I found that, businesses will pay more to get help in these areas. And so you can expect to have a good livelihood. And if you
Mhm.
are, doing the jobs at the litigator end, you can expect to have a really good livelihood. So if money is your focus and that's what you want to do, just find out what the price is for each one of these, jobs and these things, and decide if it's a price you want to pay. And that's about all. I mean, but the opportunities are there. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I think I last checked, and oh, just it was a couple of years ago. I mean, we've got some patent litigators at like 2,000 an hour or more.
Yeah.
And so it's like these are just astronomical amounts, and those are rarefied jobs. But if that's what you want, it exists, and you can go there.
Yeah.
If that's not what you want to scale back and have a life, or have more fun in your life, there are
Mhm.
plenty of jobs that actually are interesting and that pay well.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you to consider them. And because there are just so many of them and so many different things that you can do, it's on that chart, and I listed out all the stuff, the different opportunities. But essentially, for every single one of them, you can go into law school or law firms, you can go into corporations or companies, you can go into academia, you can go into the government,
Yeah.
and or you can go into consulting or M&A type firms or venture capitalists and that kind of stuff. And so it's like this huge, huge pool of potential places you can pivot whenever you like, and that you can try something and say, was that for me? Yes, no. Answer the question in 18 months and move on.
Right.
And so, but you can do that, and it's it's great because there are a lot of, like, I'm thinking of M&A right now and I'm smiling because it's like if I had to do it over, I would have done that and gone there because
M&A for our students is mergers and acquisitions.
yeah.
So that's
And the
another
reason I'm
area of
laughing at it is
corporate
because
law.
I didn't know this until later in life. I've done like the last count was 65 M&A deals, being in-house counsel usually on the acquiring side.
Wow.
And the thing that I'm laughing about is because I didn't recognize it or know it at the time, but I saw it every single time. When there's an acquisition type event that's happening, somebody somewhere turns on this money spigot. It's like there is so much money that changes hands at that M&A juncture, and it's like, wow. I mean, I got to the point where I was doing the diligence in-house and I was doing it better than the outside counsel that we were hiring, and we were paying them a heck of a lot more than they paid me. And I was going, what am I doing here? So if I had to
Well,
do it over, I would have gone in that direction to begin with.
right.
I just didn't know. I just didn't know at all. So anyway,
Well,
advice for the money people.
I appreciate all of that advice. That's all really, really good advice and things that I think there's a lot of nuggets there that I think our students can really incorporate into their legal studies right now. I want to transition to a few questions that we've had from the audience, and I'm going to start with just a little clarification. The patent bar exam is only if you intend to do patent law, and that's after you've passed the California bar exam. Is that correct?
Actually, it's even more narrow than that. You take the patent bar exam if you want to practice in front of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and you
Okay.
want to call yourself a patent attorney.
Okay.
So you know how the rules against advertising and false and misleading stuff, if you say, well, I'm a, bankruptcy attorney, you're not supposed to do that. I know it's relaxed these days, but
Mhm.
patent law was the one area that said, well, yeah, you can do that because you have to have passed the patent bar exam to do that, do that work in front of the patent office. If you never want to go in front of the patent office and you never want to file a patent application yourself, then you certainly don't have to take the patent bar exam.
Okay.
You can be, you can do, actually, I should back up. There's another part of this that you should know about. If you don't even want to be a lawyer, you can be a patent agent.
Mhm.
And that requires that hard engineering or science
Yeah,
background and a degree. And yes, you have to, then be admitted in front of the Patent and Trademark Office.
that's
And so,
helpful.
but you don't have to, but you're what's called a patent agent. So you can't
Okay.
practice law, but you can patent, you can help people get their patents. And so
Okay. And
it's an
so if a
option.
student were looking to do some IP contract work right now as a law student, so they're working at a law firm or maybe an internship, that doesn't require
Mm,
anything that
no, do it.
everyone
Yeah.
here is qualified to do it. So one question is, how did you know that you wanted to work at that specific first law firm? What was it about that firm that you really zeroed in on as compared to all the other firms? Um,
So I knew that I would get a good education, and that was simply it. I knew when I talked to some of the other firms, they were either wishy-washy or they didn't have a great client base or they didn't come off as being professional or so for whatever reason, it turned me off. When I was at that Christensen O'Connor Johnson Kindness is the name of the IP boutique firm. It still exists in Seattle, Washington. They're doing great work. Um, they clearly knew what they were doing and they were clearly had a good reputation. And
yeah.
so it's like, well, if I'm going to spend this time doing it, I don't want to work for a company with a bad reputation or a firm. I
Mhm.
want to walk away being able to put that on my resume and say, yeah, that's a good thing. And I learned a lot. And here's the proof. I can do this stuff now.
Yeah, good. Um, Someone is wondering if the patent bar is administered by the ABA, the American Bar Association. It sounds like it's administered by the
I don't
federal
think so.
government.
No, I think it's administered by the patent office itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're contracting that out these days or not.
Okay. And then last question here, let me just double check. Is well, this is a really general question and something that I think all students wonder about, just like they wonder about how do you put together your first professional resume, right? How do you draft a cover letter? And for questions like that, I direct students to a recording of a workshop that I did on those two things that are also on our YouTube page that gives you very detailed instructions on how to put together your first professional resume and how to write tailored cover letters. But related to that, is how do you interview at a law firm? That's a really general question for you, Julie, but can you maybe just share in a couple of minutes any advice you have about interviewing at a law firm?
Oh, it's been so long. I'm not
I
sure I
know,
remember how
right?
to interview at a law firm.
Well,
And
let,
things
let,
have changed, of
yeah,
what people are looking for and what kind of the standard are. And, all the questions that you see, put it into AI and see what it says that the questions are going to
okay,
be, and then prepare yourself from that. I can tell you, though, that the law firm experience is going to be coming from a perspective of they have to sell you. You are a commodity. Your time is a commodity. And
mhm,
so they're looking at you saying, can I resell this? Can I package it up and give it to a client and have the client be happy about it? And how much can I charge for it?
right. Can I
And
bill you
what is it?
out at
Can I
X
bill you
number of
out? Is
dollars?
this realistic? Or, or is this person so, are they so repulsive? I'm never going to let them out of the closet.
Right.
And so be
That's
cognizant of that. Yeah, I
No, I think
mean,
I appreciate that, Julie. And we really emphasize, we encourage our students to attend events, join local bar associations. You can join for free as students. Part of the reason is because you have to practice these in-person networking skills. You have to be very smooth at talking with people because you're going to have to talk your way through an interview and you have to present well. And I'm not talking about being an
Yeah.
extrovert. I'm an introvert, and a lot of great attorneys I know are introverts. You have to be able to talk about yourself, and so
Yeah.
that's a really important skill. The other thing I would say, is prepare, 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 right? Just like anything, just like your law school classes, just like your final exams, just like you're preparing to go to court or to a mediation to resolve a case, you're going to a job interview, you prepare. You do your research, you know who you're interviewing with, and you know what they do. So yeah, I think all of those things are really
Yeah.
important things to keep in
And
mind.
in terms of if you go into a corporation, I can tell you this, the way to survive and keep your job in a company, there really it boils down to two things. One, you have to do good work. You just
Mhm,
have to.
mhm.
Otherwise, they find ways to get rid of you just because you're a waste of time.
Right.
The second one is they have to actually like you. And
Like
if they
you.
if you hit both of those two,
Mhm.
you will survive layoffs. You will survive M&A deals. You will survive it because it's like you now become an indispensable and enjoyable part of the business.
That's
And
right.
so, yeah, it can't be overestimated on the terms of liking you, 'cause,
Yeah.
that's probably the one that they'll cling to the very end,
That's really good advice, Julie.
unfortunately.
And our law school classes are intentionally small because we want our students to engage with each other, to engage with their professors, and to build those relationships. And those interpersonal skills are really, really important. If your classmates don't like you, then it's a good chance you're going to have a hard time finding employment,
Mm,
because
yeah,
employers are going to you're going to be off-putting to people. And so,
right.
so yeah, good advice.
Yeah, yeah.
I am looking at the time, and I know all of you have class at 6:30 this evening. Let me double check that no last question came in. Um, okay, there was a clarification on a question. Um, okay, so I might have misunderstood the question earlier. You were interviewing law firms as much as they were interviewing you. Can you explain what you meant by that in 1 minute? And we'll
Yes, I
conclude.
wanted to work someplace where there were nice people who knew what they were doing. It was the exact same reverse equation.
Yeah.
So I knew that I only had so much time to get this education in at a law firm. And I wanted to make sure it was a good experience. I wanted to be with some of the very best attorneys that I could possibly be around.
Mhm,
My law school experience, my grades weren't great. I mean, going and working all the time in night school, it just wasn't going to happen. And I knew that I needed to make up for that. And that was
mhm,
part of the reason they didn't really want to hire me. They just like looked at my education and said, "Well, no, you're not really what we're looking for." And I'm like, "Oh
mhm,
yeah, I am. I really am.
mhm. Let
I,
me
I want
prove
to
you
do this, and
wrong.
I will. Yeah, And I worked my fanny off
Yeah.
for to get there, and I did have to make up some time in terms of things that I might have learned better in law school for sure.
Yeah.
But it was worth it because I needed to close that gap, and I needed to make sure that I was going to use that time
Yeah.
effectively with people who were high quality professionals that knew what they were doing.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you, Julie, for your time today.
Thank
And
you.
I know you put a lot of time into this presentation. It was really a learning opportunity for me. I learned a lot because these are areas of law that I've never practiced in. And so I hope all of you learned something as well. Dean Dowsett will send out a link to this recording once it's available. And I know we're going to have students that couldn't be here this evening want to watch the recording. So,
Oh,
Dean,
you're welcome to email or me or text me or anything. If you have questions, you're absolutely welcome. My phone number is public, my email is public, all of that. And so,
thank you.
yeah, feel free. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
thank you. We'll include your email when we send out the link to the recording if anyone does have any follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And I see some words of appreciation in the
Oh,
chat
thank
coming up.
you.
And thank you. And Dean Dowsett, am I forgetting anything?
Nope, that is it. So I want to thank both of you for this very engaging conversation, fireside chat. It was wonderful. I am taking away a lot from it tonight as well. So I wish everyone a wonderful evening. And